And welcome to the Midwest City Council meeting for June 13th, 2017. I appreciate all y'all being here. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I would ask that you stand, and Mr. Sullivan, could you come down and offer our invocation, and Mr. Burns will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd ask you to bow with me, please. Gracious Lord, we thank you for this occasion. Father, we give you glory and honor for this council and this great city that we live in. Father, we thank you for their willingness to serve in this capacity. Father, I'd ask your discernment and your wisdom be upon them tonight. Father, give them peace in their decisions. And Father, I just thank you so much for their willingness again. Father, I also want to thank you for this great nation and the freedom of assembly that we enjoy and like we're participating in this evening. Father, we thank you for men and women who are willing to defend and guard those freedoms, that are sacrificing being away from home and family, and that are deployed all over the world as we talk. Father, I ask your grace and mercy and safety be upon them. Give them protection. We thank you so much for Jesus. Father, we thank you for your plan of salvation, the sacrifice that both of you were willing to make on our behalf. Thank you for your willingness to do that for us. We ask all these favors in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and get into our agenda, starting with our consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the council members, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of all council members or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Consent agenda passed. We'll start with our discussion items.
First item is public hearing with discussion consideration of adopting a resolution approving the City of Midwest City, Oklahoma budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 in the amount of $90,932,255 and establishing budget amendment authority. The budget for the 17-18 year is being submitted for adoption. There has been due diligence on the part of the council and administration to provide the attached budget message, budget summary, and resolution. Additional information by fund and department can be seen in the appendix of this agenda. Budget meetings were held on May 3rd and 22nd. As required by state law, public hearing will be held prior to adoption. Staff recommends that the budgets be adopted by resolution at the department level as discussed in the budget meetings with adjustments. I would like to extend our appreciation to all of the department heads, to the finance department in putting this budget together. As we've talked about, it was a rather lean year. Revenues have not grown. They've been pretty much flat, yet we continue to have cost. Our cost of operations continues to increase every year. So a lot of hard work and effort that has gone into the budget. I appreciate the council taking the time to attend the meetings and go through a lot of extra work to be able to review and evaluate the budgets that were presented. So staff would recommend approval.
Chair would entertain a motion.
Make a motion, Pat.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed.
That-
Next discussion item?
Thank you, by the way.
All except your pay.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Next item is discussion consideration of quarterly update reports from the police and fire departments regarding the status of implementation of the police and fire reports. As you remember, earlier this year, we completed the process of preparing an assessment of both the police department and the fire departments, looking at the long-range needs of the departments. And the outcome of those reports were a rather long list of recommendations. Some of those were policy, some of those were financial recommendations, and so we are now on the journey of trying to begin the implementation of those recommendations. So you have reports from both the police chief and the fire chief, and they're here. If you have any questions for them regarding those reports or work that they're doing, so.
Chief Claves, could you come to the podium and address the council? Ladies and gentlemen, this was a request by the council to ensure that after we expended the money to complete these studies, that we see progress for what we expended, and also to show the citizens, you, that your money was spent in good faith, and that we are doing everything as a governing body to make sure that these recommendations are implemented as far as we can take them. So with that being said, Chief, you want to address the council?
I will. Before I get started, I got permission from the city manager. Vaughn, could you come down here? We had an incident last Friday involving an armed robbery, and during the process, we had one of our city employees assist us, and Vaughn sent me an email outlining his actions, and so we have an appreciation certificate for Joe Patterson, and he works for Vaughn, and I'll let Vaughn kind of describe what happened, but he actually was our eyes and ears on the ground and helped us identify where the suspect had gone. So Vaughn, as far as our appreciation for the Midwest City Police Department, to you and Public Works, please tell Joe Patterson a great job, and thank you so much for your
Thank you.
assistance. You
Appreciate
can
it.
certainly describe what.
Sure. Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
I appreciate it. I wasn't expecting this. Yeah, thanks to you and your officers for everything you did. They, as most of you know, the cell phone store, repair store near Midwest and 15th was held up, and immediately, I guess these gentlemen went east, or some of them did. And Black and Whites were on the scene at Public Works rather quickly and got us locked down. Everyone was safe inside the buildings, and one of our park supervisors, Joe Patterson, just happened to be up near the transfer station as one of them came out of the woods on Soldier Creek. He was being pursued by one of our officers, and he immediately shed some of his clothes, dropped a few things in the woods, and Joe was alert enough to call dispatch, and figured it was something associated with the event. Tracked the gentleman, stayed on the phone with dispatch, tracked him down Jim White Drive. Ultimately, he hid under the box culvert on Southeast 15th Street for a period of time. Joe stayed and monitored his whereabouts. He was under there briefly, and then he bolted for the Valvoline Quick Lube. Joe stayed on the phone, went around to the front of the business. The gentleman had already gone through the overhead doors and bolted across Douglas towards Soldier Creek Baptist Church, and remained on the scene until one of our officers showed up and had some eyewitness accounts of what direction he went. So, and ultimately they apprehended the fella over near Soldier Creek School, the church next door to Soldier Creek School. So it was, I appreciate you sharing that and let me share that story, but thanks to all you guys did to keep us safe there at Public Works. I happened to be out to lunch, but timing was great, but thank you, I appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Vaughn. Appreciate it. Well, that's just another example how we work with all city employees, and we appreciate them. You made a bold statement several months ago when you agreed to have the fire and police study done because it is an expenditure of the public's money, and so it's important on our part, not only as police chief and fire chief, but as city management, to make sure that we follow through with these recommendations. And so what we've done, I'm going to do a quick overview. I've sent you guys an overview, a written overview of what we've done to this point. But one of the major things we did is we went back and looked at our mission statement, and we obviously had not changed that for probably 21 years. Not that we don't look at it every year in our strategic planning, but we added a vision statement with it, and I have some visual aids today. We've actually reprinted this, and these are posted throughout our department, so you can pass these along. This is the one that goes to my office here that has our new mission statement, the vision statement attached to it. And all the officers and civilian employees understand what our goal and objective is, and this just reminds them on a daily basis. They're posted in the training area where we do our briefings. They're posted upstairs. They're posted in our lobby, so it's a reminder for us every day what our vision is to provide excellent police service to the citizens of Midwest City. The other thing that we've done is initially we had a strategic planning session with my staff and the labor unit. We'll expand our strategy committee where we do the implementation all the way down to the lowest level. I haven't done that yet because initially some of the recommendations were associated with money, and some of them are internal issues that we can address. But we've discussed it among staff members in the labor unit, but we're going to go ahead and flow that down to the lowest level. All the officers and civilians have a copy of my report that was provided to the council. And we have an open door policy that can provide feedback. In fact, I got some today from Animal Welfare Supervisor. We looked at our community views. We were very proud of what Matrix said. There was an issue with the hearing impaired. And at our police department, we work with Billy Harless. We actually have a hearing impaired button for someone who comes into our complex that needs any type of assistance. But we do need to work better. Mike Bauer tells us the latest, greatest 911 application will provide a system where our hearing impaired can actually text to our 911 system and they can text back. So it's the latest technology that will assist with the deaf community. We're actually going to have some advocates come into our lineups, teach our officers how to actually interact with people who are hearing impaired or other issues. The things that we've done is I've actually reached out to Cynthia Taylor from Department of Justice, who, as you know, established our Police Community Advisory Board. We're asking for her to provide some implicit bias training to our officers and our staff. We also are sending one of our officers and one of our supervisors to de-escalation training. I know I have 3 police officers on the horseshoe here that can understand this, but that provides us another tool. It's like a taser, it's like a baton, an ASP, it's like mace, but it's really probably the most important thing that the officers do in the field is how do you de-escalate a situation. All of our CIT officers are trained with de-escalation when it deals with mental health. This de-escalation training will provide training for all officers in all situations. And what we're going to do is train the trainer. It was expensive, but we're going to bring these officers back to train our entire staff with the de-escalation process. And so I think it's one of probably the most vital changes we've made in the most recent history, because as you know, what we deal with on a daily basis, a lot of it has to do with how we communicate with our public. The other thing that we've done is we have a Safe Oklahoma grant where we do the weed and seed portion. Typically, the law enforcement is the weeding portion, but we're going to do something different. I talked to Mr. Henson about 2 weeks ago. We're going to take some of the officers who are assigned to the Weed and Seed Safe Oklahoma grant. They're actually going to go door to door, an extension of what Christine and Pat and the mayor and Guy and I have done in the neighborhoods along with fire department, so that we still keep that open communication with the public that we serve. We have some pamphlets I want to pass out to you. These are designed to gather intelligence information, because a lot of times we're going to be talking to them face to face, but they may not want to tell us something for fear of retaliation. So we're going to provide these pamphlets. I'll let Jeff pass those out to give to our citizens, and hopefully it'll give us some intelligence information to make it safer in the safer neighborhoods for us. The other thing that we're doing, and I'm going to go over this really quick, as you know, in the Matrix system, it talks about the manpower issues, and I can tell you right now, and I've discussed this with Mr. Henson, we looked at the last 5 years. Actually, Mr. Henson's idea to come up with the 5%. They asked us to maintain 5% over what we're actually budgeted for. In the last 5 years, police officers, just commissioned officers that have left the department, in 2012-13, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2013-14, we had 5. In 2014-15, we had 5 officers leave. In 2015-16, we had 7 officers leave. And so far this fiscal year, we've had 7 officers leave. You know, from the training aspect, we don't have our own academy, so we have to send officers to CLEAT unless they're already certified. We certainly prioritize those individuals who have CLEAT certification. But the problem is once we train them at CLEAT, bring them back through our FTO program, they're not on the streets for about 9 months. So you can see we're behind the 8 ball in reference to manpower. In addition to this, I actually have 13 people who are on injury leave or some type of family medical leave right now. That's almost a whole shift that we've been dealing with, and it's been consistent. So when they talk about the 5% over what we're authorized as far as strength and manpower, not only are we lacking in that area, but obviously we can't keep up with the injury leaves and the people who are leaving the department. Most of these people are retiring. We have an aged police officer group over there. I've been there 38 years. Most of my management staff has been there 30, 35. So as you see, as they get to the retirement age, we're seeing the turnover now. It's really kind of peaked for us. But it's important that we look at that and that you understand that, because it's been very difficult, especially with the summer months when activity increases. We're dealing with that with a lot of issues as far as manpower right now. I'm going to go through this very quickly. And as I said, you've had this. We have, they talked about our SARA model of planning and analyzing. I've actually got a great example. Tony Lee did an example. I'll let you guys see this, but it's on autism identification database. Now, you wouldn't think that would be important, but when you have a child that has autism that goes missing, it's important we have the database. And what Anthony Lee did is he had this problem, and he did the SARA model, and now we have 16 children in the database that's readily available for us if they end up missing. And these are children who are diagnosed with autism. So we have been using the SARA model, even though the matrix system study said that we had not. We also have the 11-point system on the signing out cases, which I have the policy here. I'm not going to bore you with that, but there are some things that they talk about in the matrix system that we have been doing. There's a misunderstanding of our municipal jail from my perspective. One is that municipal jail is 45 years old. It meets current jail standards. We get inspected twice a year. We always have high marks. We have a staffing schedule of 12-hour shifts, which provides us with the number of jailers we need. There was a recommendation to add 4 jailers. Obviously, that's a cost factor. I would love to have additional personnel in the jail for the safety reasons, the other issues that they talk about, but that goes back to the issue of where you get the money to pay for it. So all these things you need to look at, and we're certainly going to continue to look at those and how to implement those. The ones that have a cost factor, we'll certainly come back to the council for assistance in reference to that. But overall, I thought the report was very positive. I can tell you, I always tell everybody that we have the greatest police department, not in the state of Oklahoma, but I think in the United States. And I'm very proud to serve with the men and women that I do. You got a great police department, and that's all I can say about that. And so I hope you realize that, and they do a very tremendous job on a daily basis trying to provide safety to our citizens and responding to calls. So I'm open to any questions you all may have.
Chief, I would like for you to just expand on the pamphlet that we have in Midwest City. Is it called How to Interact? Okay.
Well, thanks to you and others, we created a pamphlet for the city of Midwest City. We we plagiarized Oklahoma City, who worked with the NAACP, to create this pamphlet, and you would be surprised that some people don't know how to interact with police when they're first encountered. This pamphlet, as we go door to door, we issue out so that people have the understanding of what you do if you come in contact with a police officer. And it's very simple, it's non-aggressive, and I think it provides great information and hopefully has created a situation when someone comes in contact with us, they're not as scared or intimidated as they may be.
So how can someone obtain one of the pamphlets?
I have several at the police department. I think we have some at Tom Bridget's office, Neighborhoods in Action. We initially were going to put them in our convenience stores, but we're not able to do that. So we have them available if anybody would like one.
I have a
you so
follow-up
very
question on that, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any thought about going into the high schools in particular and doing a short in-service on how to interact with a police officer, or having the school resource officers maybe do that? Because when you first get them in cars, it's their first interaction, hopefully. Any thought about that, maybe?
Well, I think that's a great idea. We do have Terry Tilley, our school resource officer at Midwest City High School. And I will tell you, I would love to have school resource officers at all the high schools and middle schools, but we can't do that at this point. Terry Tilley does have a class at the high school that talks about that, character values, good decision making. We need to expand that to Carl Albert High School, obviously, too. I know that you're closely affiliated with Jarman Middle School.
I'm moving on up this year, Chief.
Okay, you're going to high school. Congratulations. But there are some things that we can do better as far as education. We always talk about education training, but that is one of those that we can do. Thank you.
Thinking if we could do it not just as a single class, but as an assembly, perhaps something like that.
Well, I'm actually going to meet with the administrators at the end of July to talk about what we're doing as far as community outreach, but that doesn't actually touch the students. I'm talking to the administrators, all the teachers and administrators at the beginning of the school year to talk about some things. But we'll certainly make that happen, especially with LaShonda at Midwest City High School and the principal over at Carl Albert. We can do that.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
Chief, I got a couple of comments and then a couple of questions, and I appreciate the memo that you wrote to us and the level of information that was on it. The detail was overwhelming. The first comment or question I have deals with the strategic plan. And you mentioned in your statement that I guess you're going to expand it to include the labor unions and the rank and file to get their input all the way down. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct. We initially had our initial meeting with the labor union and staff. Now we're going to include our officers at the lowest level, also mid-level management, because when we initially got the report, it's over 160 pages. There's a lot to comprehend. So what we're going to have to do is dissect it chapter by chapter and go through with implementation phase. A lot of our issues at the police department are directly related to finances, as you know well, as you well are aware, basically with manpower needs. But there are some internal things we can do that they pointed out that we've looked at, but we have, as Mr. Henson will say, we haven't drilled down to the point where we feel comfortable with it yet. But our plans are to do that. This information you have has been given to everybody in the police department. There's no secrets in the police department. We push the budget down. We push down all of our decisions and why they're made. So if there are an issue, they can come to my office, the assistant chief, or whoever it may be to ask those questions. So our plan is to make this transparent, to include as many people as possible so that we successfully implement this for two reasons. One is to do what we promised to do, go out and do the study, pay the money, taxpayers' money, and not just let the study sit on the shelf, but to actually do something with the information.
And I think that's critical because you've made a comment, and we've talked about a lot of the stuff in your study is fiscal related. And in order for us, this body here, to understand what your needs are today, next week, next year, and 2 or 3 years from now, we need a plan because we need to know what you think and what your people think is going to happen. And it's important for us to have that. And I think it's extremely important that even the secretaries be involved and everybody, because there's things that they do that we have no idea. And I think it's going to be a whole lot more accepted, not only by your people, but by us if it was drilled down. You also mentioned in your memo about measurable performance standards. Can you explain what that's going to be?
Well, for an example, I'll give you a really simple example, is we talk about in our goals and objectives for the budget process, reduce Part 1 crimes, which are our violent crimes. I know you know what that is, Pat, and Matt does, and Phil does. But you don't measure that. It's just an open-ended statement. So what we've done is we've established some measurable goals, like we want to lower it by 5% this year. That's a pretty big task, but we want to lower it by a percentage. Well, we can measure those things. We want to reduce injury accidents and non-injury accidents. We want to identify the 10 most dangerous intersections in the city and provide special emphasis and measure those. So we're gradually getting to a point where we can do some measurements, and that's what we're talking about from the simplest level.
You kind of glossed over it, but I want to commend you on the de-escalation training. That's important for everybody in this community, the people that don't understand, and for you guys to reach out to do that, there's a lot of pushback across the country for that, and thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And you know, we feel that the implicit bias training is important too. Bill City, my friend, your former boss, chief of Oklahoma City, they paid a consultant $15,000 to come in and teach that class. And there is pushback from police officers. But it's important that we're exposed to that so that we understand how we deal with individuals. So it's important we stay on the cutting edge of those things.
The final thing, and I know this will probably surprise a lot of people, but we're kind of fond of stray dogs and cats. And there was an article or a news deal the other day about the problem at the animal shelter. And I also noticed that you mentioned it in your memo, and it's mentioned in the ECI study about an adoption center. Is that something that we need to look forward, or what can we do to help that?
Well, I would direct you back to the city manager. We actually did a study of the animal welfare. Mr. Henson, was that 2 to 3 years ago? I know Sean Reed's had an interest in that. We did a study, and they came back with some plans about how we could address it. Our animal welfare center is outdated. It's out of sight, out of mind. Adrian Sanders and his staff do an excellent job as far as the live release rate back to the city. We average around 80-something%, which is really unbelievable for the size and staffing that we have there. But in the summer months, as you saw on TV, we get lots of strays and people turn their dogs in. And I can tell you those people do not want to euthanize any animal up there. And it's painful for them. We even send them to our EAP at times because can you imagine doing that on a daily basis? It's a tough job. But there comes a point in time where we've outgrown our facility. But again, Mr. Byrne, it's related to money. And we can get to Taj Mahal at $3 million, and you get somewhere in between at $1.5 million. Mr. Henson came up with a great idea to maybe remodel something on South Douglas Boulevard as an adoption center. We're open to those ideas, but we'll be coming back to the council for direction on where we need to go, because what we have now is not the most efficient, effective, or humane way to deal with these animals.
I'd like to jump in on that conversation for just 1 second, too. Chief, I volunteer with a couple of different rescue groups, and I would ask if there's an opportunity to form a committee about setting up this adoption center, that we bring in some of the rescue groups who already have their own programs going, because they deal with a lot of the same issues. There's only so many homes out there. There's a lot of pets out there. And if we could work in a collaborative manner to something that would be beneficial and use their insight and their experiences, I think it would be very favorable.
Thank you. Well, we have a diamond in the rough at the shelter. Her name's Trish Scandoval. She is our part-time volunteer, paid volunteer / coordinator with our rescue groups. You'd be amazed at how many animals she saves with those people in those groups. So hats off to her and Adrian and the staff, because she's been a godsend to us as far as our animals down there. But I don't disagree if we can get to that point. You know, and we encourage people who want to be volunteers at the animal welfare. Come see us. We have a process where we vet through those applications and try to get as many as we can. But you know, it's a difficult job for those people to do, but they do a great job.
Chief, I just wanted to, I don't have any questions, just comment. Reaching out to the special needs community, the deaf community, and those with autism is something that I find very meaningful, and something that I've actually witnessed with the chief. I have a constituent who's got an adult son who's autistic, and about 7 or 8 months ago, he sent a very worried, detailed letter. His son is rather large. What would happen in an interaction with the police officer? And it was an extremely touching letter. And I sent it to Brandon. He responded back. As a father, more so than as a chief, and I appreciated that. He set up a time for his officers to go out and meet the boy. the son, he's not a boy, he's an adult. And I've seen how your guys reach out, and I just wanted to say thank you, and you guys do a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any further questions of the chief? The chair would entertain a motion to accept his report.
Motion to.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in
Accept.
favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Chief, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
report. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. I do, as I close, we buried a really good friend of mine today, Jim Cruz, who started with me in 1979. Served 29 years here with the City of Midwest City, was our former FOP president at one time. We worked a lot of hours together. Difficult day for a lot of people at the police department, so keep their family in their prayers, and we were very fortunate to spend that time with Jim. So in honor of him, I wanted to bring his name up one more time, so for his service. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Norton, you want to address the council, please?
Mayor and Council, we submitted to you a report of just a few things, and we gave you a supplement and this evening attachment as well. So we do, we talked a little bit in pre-council about the importance of the money that was spent and holding ourselves accountable for being able to accomplish these tasks and check them off and make sure that the money that was spent for that goes to its purpose of accomplishing and making your department from what's good now to better in the future and being able to meet the needs of our citizens. And so the report identified and made about roughly 68 recommendations in the front of the book that you have the report, the final copy. We made a recommendation and or gave an update of a couple of things that were already hit on, and in that page is that we've made some steps in one of the recommendations with the Fire Prevention Bureau plan. We've aligned ourselves with NFPA 1730. The Fire Marshal and his crew's done a good job of outlining the way that we're going to get the businesses done on an annual basis, and we've also, with the minimal staff he has, a lot of the things in the report make recommendations that we hire several people, and obviously you guys approved the budget tonight. You know exactly what the funds are and how they're limited. So, they identified the critical, high, moderate, and low hazards, and we are going to hit the critical, high, and moderates on an annual basis. And then 1730 allows for the low hazard to be hit on a 3-year revolving basis. They'll be able to catch those. So they're going to do a good job doing that. We've also had a recommendation to have what we use in the Fire Marshal's division to do the International Fire Code. We're using 2015, and we're using 2009 over here. Some of those things make it tough because we have requirements from our department for specific things, and so the recommendations to do that, both of them are in the same edition of the book. Even though it's not the same book, it's the same edition. And I know the Fire Marshal's had some conversation with community development and Chuck and his group of getting that accomplished as well. We also have one of the things that we've started working on is evaluations of policies and procedures. It's seems to be a long task for us. I mean, it's something that for myself has been with the fire department since 2001, and I don't know that they've all ever been updated in that time period. Maybe bits and pieces have been added. So we've got those things that we're working on. Probably the one that's the biggest thing that we're looking into that you asked about, the priorities up in pre-council that we've laid out of the 68 deals. And it deals with the NFPA 1710 times and the accurately capturing of the data. We've identified some of our weaknesses and steps that we've got to take, and we've started making some small improvements in that area of dealing with the iPads, working with the app. We noticed recently there's 2 programs, again, that don't work together in jail, so we're eliminating one to try and better accurately be able to capture the time. It's a Tyler product that works in directly with our CAD system. We've had some CAD discussions early on, realizing that, Tyler looks like what we have and we're going to have for a while. We're going to do everything that we can on our end to make it work, understanding that there's going to be some technologically difficulties of making maybe some of that work. It's going to cost some money, but we need to do on our end what we can first to make sure that we're doing and we're ready for prepare when Tyler comes out. So also, so in the second part, the supplement that I added to you, that you know, basically when we went through and broke out some of the things, kind of where they fall in the fire department, some of those recommendations that are out there. And so we showed that there's some of the committee members and the number of members that are working on there. You know, we have roughly 37 people that will work in different individuals. We may have some overlappings. We have a couple of committees left to form that we're seeking people for that to come on. But we're going to hit roughly, you know, not a little bit less than half the department's going to be responsible for working on this. And that's a way that they're going to take in ownership. You know, we have some low-lying fruit things that we're going to be tackling, which is revisiting, just as Chief Claves did, our mission statement, establishing a vision statement for those, and moving forward with those. One of the things, just as Councilman Burns said about, you know, holding us accountable to some things, is that, you know, in the very near future, we're going to have something before you as a council that's going to be adopting the jurisdiction response times and objectives. You know, as we went through this process and learning, the fire department has a little bit different layout from the NFPA standards and what the police department does. We have measurable standards. We know that anytime someone calls for police emergency, it's pretty urgent that they get there all the time. The fire department, they've been able to capture critical time data and stamps. And one of them is with the fire in the NFPA 1710, identifies fire response and getting those available resources there within the first 6 minutes to 20 seconds, having a unit there, because they've been able to capture from the time a fire starts to the time that you know, it's just that we can't enter the structure. We know that. The EMS times are time stamped as well, and they know that we've been able to identify that when someone calls a need, they're having a stroke, they've had a heart attack, you know, they're unresponsive, that there's time stamps that we need to get there to render the first aid as quick and soon as possible as we can, and in turn it gives them a better outcome from the situation that they're in. So in doing that, we've realized that the CAD system really hasn't addressed some of those issues of how we capture the data. Some of it is to blame on the fire department for not holding the accountability to Tyler when we made the switch years ago, that it evidently has been a product that they were working on and there was no urgency for it, and so they just kind of let it drop. So, you know, we're hoping that within a month or so, Tyler has talked about that, you know, an AVL response, which is you're going to get the closest unit response to an emergency. You know, they have the capability to identify each one of our fire stations. If you live by that, it's going to send that unit out of that station. But one of the things that we get assessed with ISO and looking and using AVL technology is if you have a station that's coming into the city to get fuel and they're driving by another district's address, they're going to be caught that they're the closest unit and they're going to be responded that way. So Tyler is doing their part to be able to help us move forward. So we hope that that's going to be a positive thing for us and be something that we get back to. We used to capture that data, and now we're hoping to be able to redo it again in the year. So, you know, that pretty much sums how we've laid it out. There's a lot of things that looked, you know, going to have some financial impact, and we're going to come to you guys. And the first step that we have is asking for your adoption of these jurisdictional response and objectives, and then that moving forward is going to set us out to say, hey, this is what we need dollar-wise, and this is how it aligns with our jurisdictional objectives. So,
You said in your memo that you gave us that several items in the recommendations were implemented before or soon after the final report was accepted.
yes, sir.
With the exception of the fire truck, because I know the mayor was pretty adamant about putting that back in the station. What are some of those recommendations that have already been implemented?
The one that has been we worked out the plan with the 1730, the Fire Prevention Bureau, to get that in alignment with, you know, the ESCI recommendation recommends us to do 100% of the businesses, but we aligned with NFPA 1730. We've done that. We've begun the process of updating policies and procedures. That was just something that has been on the back burner as time has come. It started even with the previous chief before me that has started the process, and it just fell by the wayside, and so you pick it up. So we've been able to get that going, and we're making that a priority again. And then we had,
Chief, wasn't there something to do with establishing a formal training program to ensure individual performing public education is trained?
oh, yes, sir,
in the
we
field?
had, we just recently did that, though. It was in May. We did, the recommendation was to align with 1032, or 1031, I'm sorry, and they've done some testing public education to be able to show that they can deliver programs to the kids.
Okay, and I don't know how to say this without probably offending some people, but as a council, I'm not so sure that, personally, I'm speaking for myself, is that falling by the wayside or just it fell through the cracks like Tyler, not that, if that was a software problem, I would hope that in the future that you come to them so they can come to us, because if there's a problem with the software and it's causing delays in getting trucks to fires or getting enough firemen to a fire, we're putting our citizens in jeopardy. And I'm not so sure that I'm willing to accept that it's gonna fall by the wayside or we just didn't get to it. So hopefully, you know you have our support. If something like that happens, please get with Mr. Henson, because he knows how critical those few seconds are on a software glitch, because I don't want to have to face somebody and say, well, we just didn't get to it because whatever, it fell
Sure.
through the wayside. So please, like I said, we deal with the sins of others. You're saying it's from the previous chief, going back as far as 2001 so you mentioned that on the policies. When will those be updated? Because that's a pretty significant time.
Right, it absolutely is. We're hoping that this year they'll be done. We don't have a specific end date with it. We're divvying out those responsibilities. Some of the staff's been getting ready for ISO 1 evaluation to come in. So once we get that done this next week, we should be able to step and move forward. We have updated some of the smaller policies, but as a big group, so this year, I would say within 4 months, it should be hopefully done.
Because ESCI actually stated that the department is in the process of updating policies and procedures into a format that provides clarity and confusion, and they recommended that receive the highest priority to ensure effective administration of departmental objectives, which goes in line with 1710 response times. If you don't have a policy, you don't have you have nothing if it's not
Correct.
written down. Also, and I don't mean to, I guess it's going to put you on the spot. This strategic plan committee that you handed out to us, and then listening to what the police department's doing, it doesn't seem that it's two different avenues. The chief of the police is going out to everybody. It's my hope that you will too, because I think the guys on the trucks, the guys who are out there fighting the fires, should be involved in the overall strategic plan, because we need, and you need their buy-in. I mean, and we listened to Brandon, and then I noticed on your list it doesn't have anybody. It doesn't have the union. It doesn't have the guys on the trucks on that plan. Is there any chance of that occurring?
Well, our strategic plan, the way that we're broken down, Councilman, is we have some, all the recommendations go into this plan from the ESCI that are divided out on these 2 or 5 pieces of paper. And that's buy-in from all the members. When you look at how it's going to be structured, it's buy-in from all the members all the way down. The main strategic planning portion of that is made of the administration staff, or the assistant chiefs, the training officer, myself, and the administration major. There's some things that we're just spearheading to do is with working with Tyler, trying to figure out the links and the systems on some of these things. So we will do our best to have everyone involved in there. We don't have a specific spot listed as labor on the committee, but out of all those people that are going to be working on it, the only 2 that's not labor is myself and David Richardson. I mean, everybody. So we don't have a specific spot labeled for labor, but they all have some.
But Chief, it depends on what hat they're wearing when they're in that committee. If they're wearing the assistant chief or the training chief, they're representing that job. They're not representing, and I'm not saying that you have to do or should do or need to do anything, but Brandon seems to have it right that he's got buy-in from not just the rank and file, but the union as well, especially since their contract, and you have to negotiate with them, and there could be some stuff that comes up that we might have to have in a contract at some point. Letting them, like Brandon have somebody that's there as a representative of the union probably isn't a terrible idea.
Okay, duly noted, we'll take care of that.
Two more things, and it goes back to non-fiscal stuff. I mean, I haven't picked on any, because we can't hold you responsible for fiscal stuff. That's our issues. It was talked about twice in ESCI, specifically about communication within the department. It says that there was no process. Process must be established to address the flow of information and communication within the fire department as well as its constituents on page 85. And then on page 86 it talks about challenges are known by each set of stakeholders, but there's no process to identify or prioritize them as a group. Now I realize that you guys may just see each other in passing when you've got 3 shifts, but we hope when it's brought up twice that there be something set up where there be some mechanism in place where that communications gets together.
Well, we are working on that. We do currently have a staff meeting, councilman, each Monday morning, that we try to get the information disseminated from that group, and the 3 shifts, everybody meets, the 3 shift commanders are there, fire marshal, myself, and training. We all meet there once a week to discuss issues, and hopefully the information is disseminated that way.
Chief, you've got some incredibly talented group of individuals in your fire department, and most of which I admire greatly, because I've worked with a lot of them for the last 30 plus years. And plus two, we've got an incredibly talented fire department as a whole. They do a great job, just like the fire department or the police department, and all of you should be commended for the job that you do. And we appreciate the effort that's being pushed in getting the standards that were put forth by the study. But with that being said, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. You're the boss.
Right.
And we're not being mean. We're not being ugly. But we're going to do the same thing to the police chief. So this is just the first step in ensuring that those studies are going to be implemented. And again, we have the greatest admiration on this horseshoe for our entire public safety staff, and we do appreciate what you do. With that being said, one of the first steps that we were addressing, or I was seeing being addressed, was the minimum manning issue. Has that been corrected? Have we come to a resolution with that?
With the grievance that we had going on with the minimum
Yes,
manning,
we've cleared that.
Yes,
Have
sir.
we not?
Yes, sir. That's
And
cleared
we
up.
do have a minimum manning standard that is pushed down throughout the department, and everybody understands.
Of
correct?
19, correct. We've had, right.
Good job. Are there any further questions for the chief?
I'd just like to make a statement. I'd like to thank you for coming up in the community and just being a part of it. You and your all of your staff, your firemen. I appreciate it because the community received, you are very well being out there and show that you're part of, you are there to serve us, to serve the communities. And so they really enjoyed it. So thank you for your service, and thank you for all that you're doing and all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up comment also, Chief. I participate with our neighborhood associations in Ward 1, and we have recently had the benefit of having the addition of fire coming out to those meetings, which is we always have community action from police. We've had fire recently. That's been a welcome addition. and the services that they have offered to our citizens with regard to smoke detectors and instructions on emergency preparedness, like in the case of a tornado. I also want to thank the members of the fire department came out to Jarman Middle School, the kids with the National Junior Honor Society, did a drive for water and Gatorade, and the fire guys were nice enough to bring a truck out and graciously accept the donation, and the kids appreciated that. So I want to thank you and the department for those things.
Thank you.
So can we all give the fire department applause? Thank you.
With that being said, are any further questions of the chief? Chair to entertain a motion to accept his report as written.
Make a motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? The next discussion item.
This is TS 429, discussion consideration of a request for a traffic study, engineering design, and a funding application submittal for a new traffic signal installation at the intersection of South Douglas Boulevard and Orchard Boulevard. The applicant, Carrie Wilburn, and her neighbors have requested a traffic signal installed at the intersection of South Douglas Boulevard and Orchard Boulevard. Currently, westbound traffic on Orchard Boulevard terminates into the cross traffic of Douglas Boulevard. Applicant states that the high volume of traffic creates an unsafe environment at the intersection for traffic traveling to all three directions to and from this intersection. Douglas is considered a primary arterial. Orchard is a local street. Speed limit for Douglas is 45, Orchard is 25. Presently, there is a stop sign at the intersection. The petition drive and letter of request are included with the application. Over 100 citizens within the adjacent Orchard addition signed the petition in favor of it. You also have some references to the MCT manual, which is the Uniform Traffic Control Device Manual. It would appear that it does meet warrants signals 1, 2, and 3, and so staff is recommending this request, and the Traffic and Safety Commission also recommended approval of the new traffic installation. If this is approved, what we will do is move forward with a warrant study to confirm what we believe to be the situation there. That will be followed by coming back to you all with some form of an engineering contract to actually do the design, to actually do a engineering design of the signal. And then in December, we would submit this for federal funding in the 2019 fiscal year TIP program through ACOG. And so that would be the timing of the project.
Move to approve. Before we get into that, I want to take a minute of executive privilege, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen, this project on our discussion agenda is a direct result of citizens getting involved in their government. I've said several times, and I maintain, that municipal government is the last bastion of republic representative government in the United States. This is where you get to come face to face with the people that you elected to represent you. The collective efforts of your group are to be commended. And I personally, as your mayor, appreciate the effort that you put forth in bringing this to us. Again, this is a direct result of your hard work. It's a needed project. We're going to approve this project, obviously, I think. I'm probably stepping on a limb by saying that. But again, I appreciate it personally, and we've been, myself and Councilman Burns have been involved in this when you all reached out to us from the beginning. And again, I appreciate your hard work, and thank you for being involved in your community. Councilman Burns?
I make a motion to pass it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, for being here.
Next discussion item is discussion consideration of appointing a replacement on the Planning Commission to fill the unexpired term of Floyd Wicker.
I ask that this, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Motion to table this.
I have a motion to table, no further actions required. Am I correct, Mr. Attorney?
Well, we need the vote.
Okay.
We need a second and a vote to
sorry.
continue.
I have a motion to table and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? This item will come back up before the council, next council meeting. We now enter to the new business public discussion of our agenda. Anyone having anything to bring forward to the council, it's your time. Ms. Hunt, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you for approving my contract again with the city, Midwest Media and Marketing, for public relations, marketing, and communications. Actually, it's the 11th such contract. So I really appreciate it, and I want you to know that it's an honor to serve this community in this capacity, and it's one that I do not take for granted at all. I can't imagine working for a better community, leadership, staff and council, and the wonderful staff that I get to interact with literally on a daily basis. To look back and see where we were 11 years ago is pretty mind-boggling, and to see the improvements that we have been able to make over the years, and that's been simply because the vision of the leadership and the willingness of the mayor and council to keep approving budgets. And speaking of budgets, thank you for approving the additions that are going to be placed in the marketing and communication budget this year. That additional funding will simply allow us to do more, and that is what I think we're all striving to do. Efficiently and effectively use our resources and stay up with trends and do as much effective communication with our public as we humanly can. So again, thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you all for another year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt.
Mr. Mayor,
Any further business to bring before the council? Yes, ma'am.
while we have a number of citizens in the audience, if you might go ahead and put in a plug for the Made in Oklahoma Festival this Saturday.
We would encourage everyone, if your schedule allows, we'll be hosting the Made in Oklahoma Fest this weekend at the Sheridan Hotel in Midwest City at the Reed Conference Center. There'll be live music, food and drink, local artisans, a car show, and demos and more. So starts at 10 a.m. And goes till 6 p.m., and that's on June 17th.
No further public discussion. Hearing none, we'll move, we do have an executive session.
This is discussion consideration of one entering into executive session as allowed under 25 OS Section 307B4 to discuss Lisa Ramsey tort claim MWL 16-06, and 2, an open session authorizing the city manager to take action as appropriate based on the discussion in executive session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going to executive session. We'll be back shortly. Okay, call us back to order.
Move to approve as discussed in
Second.
executive session.
Second motion.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Any further information to bring before the council? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of the trustees or the members of the audience wish to continue or discuss an item, it will be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. First discussion item.
This is public hearing with discussion consideration of adopting a resolution of the Midwest City Municipal Authority approving its budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 in the amount of $45,580,478.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. New business, public discussion? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. Call to order the Midwest City Municipal or Memorial Hospital Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any one item proposed does not meet the approval of all the trustees or members of the audience which discuss an item, it will be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. First discussion item.
This is public hearing with discussion consideration of adopting a resolution of the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority approving its budget for fiscal year 2017-18 in the amount of $3,738,392 for discretionary, $1,544,152 for compounded principal, $58,440 for the hospital expansion loan reserve, and $2,944,362 for the in lieu of ROR miscellaneous divisions.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Second discussion item.
This is discussion, consideration of action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy, guidelines, and objectives. No action is necessary on this.
We now move into the new business public discussion. Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. Moving into the agenda for the special meeting of the Midwest City Utilities Authority. Call this meeting to order. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet the approval of all the trustees or member of the audience wish to discuss an item, it will be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? We now have one discussion item.
This is public hearing with discussion consideration of adopting a resolution of the Midwest City Utilities Authority approving its budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 in the amount of $25,200.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? New business public discussion? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned.
You're getting pretty good at that, Mayor.
I am, aren't I?